There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, very wise, wise was he. Then one day, one magic day, he came my way. And as he spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me, the greatest thing that you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. As he spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me, the greatest thing that you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Be loved in return, just to love and be loved in return.
Man, that's great, Nature Boys. That was my nickname for a while when I was in Santa Monica. Friends, welcome to worship here in this historic sanctuary at the Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My name is Nathan Dannison. I serve as the interim minister here at Fountain Street, and I want to welcome you to our summer worship services. Today is a beautiful day. It is worthy of celebration. Fountain Street has been carrying the light and hope of liberal religion and beloved community here in Grand Rapids for over a century and a half. We welcome all, regardless of who you are, regardless of what you believe or who you love, we draw the circle wider still. This summer, we've been celebrating some of the wonderful musicians from throughout West Michigan who've been a part of the history of this church. And this week and next, we're honored to have Robin Connell Trio returning with us in the sanctuary today. Thank you. So there's been a slight change in the lineup, so I wanted to let Robin herself introduce these wonderful musicians.
Oh my gosh, it's been a whirlwind. Dylan was going to play bass with us today. It was the first time I got to work with him. I've just seen him perform, and wonderful young bass player. But he texted me yesterday to say he had a fever, was quite ill. What am I going to do? I got to find another bass player. I couldn't. But I bet a lot of you know the wonderful guitarist I have today, Mike Hyde.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah. And we do have Yuriana Sabrino on drums. Many of you have seen her before. And then I did the band leader's nightmare, which was a drummer walked in, and it was supposed to be a trio. And a wonderful young man I've so enjoyed working with the last year or so. He's headed to New York soon, but I totally blew it when I booked him. It was supposed to be next week in my head, but he came today, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have two drummers. Please welcome Joe Miller. Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here and for returning next week as well. So I also want to share my appreciation for this beautiful work of art, the pulpit front piece. As you know, this summer we've had different art pieces show up in worship, and for the last few weeks, these pieces have been created by our Fountain Street summer day camp students, the kids who've been here at the church for the last 3 weeks. This is the final week of that program, and last week was the final week. We've had over 20 kids here making art, learning about the values of humanism and empathy. And this piece was created by those kids with Angela Swan up in the art room on the 4th floor. It was great to see the sunlight shining in and see that space reopened again. And I want to take, again, a minute and thank Katie Mitchell and Angela Swan, the Character School people, all of them. After church today, there's a potluck. It's been organized by the district leaders. Thank you to everyone that brought food, and thank you to everyone who brought an appetite as well, because we have a lot of food to eat. So you're not going anywhere. That's good. We've got work to do after church. I've been watching y'all get to know each other a little bit better this summer, and I want to encourage everybody to please, if you have one, remember to wear your name tag. That's important. Even just your first name can make it easier to build connections. We've added over 150 people to the membership rolls this last year, and countless more folks have been coming in, and new friends, building community together, guests, visitors. And because I'm in the Midwest, I'm going to teach you a magic spell that I learned when I was in the South. It's kind of an incantation. It goes like this. I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. It's magic. The other person just tells you their name. And you just say, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. And then you don't have to spend 3 years pretending like you know that person's name and like struggling to remember it. It's great. So today is a new member Sunday. Today's a day when we've opened up that membership book. And folks asked, so I do have we got the pages. I think we've got the pages in the book back to 1993 now. So if you have joined in the intervening time, you can go find your name. But today, during the children's blessing, I'm going to invite anybody who wishes during that time to come forward and sign the book. If you're a returning Fountain Street, or if you're a person who's coming back after a season away, you can rededicate. You can sign that book again. There's no rules about that. You're welcome to sign it more than once. And if you can't remember if you signed it, you can sign it again. That's okay too. This is important. We have a couple of votes coming up in the life of this church, a couple of important elections. We need your votes. We need people to vote. There's more information about this in the chimes, specifically in my most recent interim report. I think it's interim report number 15. Membership is required to vote in these autumn elections. We're going to be electing new members to the governing board. We'll also be electing the members of the pulpit committee. This is the minister search committee. Bylaws spell out the requirements for the minister search committee, and that's going to take an election as well. It requires votes, so please consider joining the church. We do not have tests of faith at Fountain Street. We do not swear oaths. We don't endorse any creeds. The only rule I have found so far in this past year that I have spent with you is the rule of love and the practice of peace. So with that practice, let's go ahead and I'll give a word of peace that you can return, and then we'll take a moment and greet each other with words of peace. Friends, peace be with you. Let's greet each other with words of peace. You may be seated. I want to invite all of the children of the church who are here this morning to come forward and join me up here in the front row. We're going to sit right here in the front row seats this time. A little bit different, if you can make your way. There's a lot of musical instruments up here, and this is, I know, me neither. This is exciting. Come on up and join me in the front row of seats. So we're just going to, just find a spot. I think we've got enough. Got some kids here today. Because we're going to say welcome if we have some new members joining today. And I don't know, but if you are interested or if you have made the decision that you want to sign the membership book or reaffirm your membership in the Fountain Street Church of Grand Rapids, I also invite you to come forward and make your way down front. In just a moment, I'm going to invite you to sign the book and share your name in this microphone. If you wish to join, you may. There are no restrictions to membership. In this church, we ask only that you contribute your gifts. Before we do that, I want to ask how many of you, where you live, there's a tree near your house? Do you live where there's a tree? I know a couple of you do. Yeah, there's a lot of trees. There's always by our house. Right. And what is the top of the tree? What does that got on it? Leaves, that's right, leaves and branches. And what is the very middle of the tree got? It's like a trunk, yep. And what is the bottom of the tree got? Roots, exactly. And when the wind blows, what keeps the tree stuck to the ground? The roots. Now, how many roots is there? Is there one root? Now, is there two? Now, is there seven? At least seven, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We talked this year about how this church is like a tree or like a forest with many roots. And this morning, as we're welcoming these new members into our fellowship together, it's like a tree that is growing stronger with new roots. And so I want you to pay attention to these folks as they join. Welcome. This morning, as you join, I just invite you to go ahead and sign your name there. And you can write it here, and then I ask you to speak your name into that microphone. And Cassie's encouraging you to go ahead and take a new member card with you. You can fill this out in your seats and place it in the offering plate so that we can get you plugged in. But go ahead and speak your name, especially so the kids can learn it.
Kurt Mayer.
Welcome. Let us show our welcome as people covenant to this thing.
Charlie Hunt, along with Emerson and Graydon in that front row.
Welcome. And if you have a long address too, you can always come back and fill out the demographic information afterwards too. Thank you.
Cody Shipley.
Miller.
Welcome.
Dion Pinto Guerra.
Diva Mahalk.
Welcome, Diva.
Dominic Chambers.
Welcome, Dominic.
Kristen Watson.
Welcome, Kristen. Thank you. And now, as the roots of this tree grow stronger, they may need a little bit of fertilizer, a little bit of help, okay? And the way that we're going to do that is by blessing them. And so I'm going to invite you to share a blessing for all of these new friends. And to do that, you just repeat after me. And I'm going to invite the members of Fountain Street Church, all the members of Fountain Street Church, to join me in this blessing as well. So just repeat after me. We see you.
We see you.
We welcome you.
We welcome you.
We are with you.
We are with you.
Wonderful work, guys. Good job. You can make your way to Character School. Follow the banner. Follow the song. Good work.
Good morning. Our reading today comes to us from a new translation of the teachings of Jesus, alternatively called Teacher's Teaching, or the Gospel of H.L. Hicks. One day, Jesus was praying in a certain place. When he finished, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples." Jesus replied, "Pray like this.
Hear us, Father, as you hear your Son. From the sky, illuminate earth with your luster.
Give us today bread for today. Forgive of our indebtedness what we forgive of others.
Turn us towards nurture and away from harmfulness. Praise like this. Over Father, beyond naming or observing, your wholeness gives off light brighter than gold gleam.
Your word solicits reconsideration and tenders life.
You are the clarity and calm of the solitary.
You see us as chooser, see chosen.
You breathe into us the breath for which we gasp.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living life today. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No religions too. Imagine all people living life in peace, oh, in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. The brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say but I know I'm not the only one. Oh no. I hope someday you'll join us. And the world will be as one. The world will be as one. Imagine all people. The world will be.
Friends, let us take a moment together and center ourselves and dwell together in silence for prayer, meditation, and centering. That is a golden gift. Fountain Street Church, happy Sunday. Later on today, later this afternoon, in fact, I am privileged to be facilitating a forum, nationwide forum for clergy folk from around the country on the topic of psychedelics and ministry. And this topic, specifically the topic of psychedelic care, is something that's endlessly fascinating to me. I'm doing this extracurricular with these ministers personally for two important reasons. The first reason is that I am personally convinced that these medicines, and here I'm talking about the psychedelic molecules from different plants and funguses, can save lives. The peer-reviewed data is showing incredible promise, and in two very specific areas that are important to me. So the first is that this is a treatment protocol to help us curb the opiate addiction epidemic in America. The opioid crisis is like a tidal wave of despair. It's completely overwhelming many of our rural communities, especially here in the Midwest, here in Michigan. These are communities that are often forgotten about. These are rural communities that are now preparing to lose their hospitals, what little medical care they had as Donald Trump's new spending bill goes into effect and shuts down hospitals across the country. Addiction to opiates destroys untold thousands of lives. And some of these medicines, specifically ibogaine, a West African plant, they're already in use. They're already available for use to millionaires and billionaires, to wealthy people around the world. There are overseas clinics in other countries where people avail themselves of these medicines. The only reason that the working class people don't have access to them is because the government is still throwing away billions of dollars on the so-called war on drugs. That's it. It's really just a war on minorities, poor people. The second reason, and I've talked about this with you before, but it's because they've shown a great deal of promise in mitigating some of the worst effects of post-traumatic stress disorder. This, especially for military veterans. These are mostly working class Americans who were often very young when they got sold on joining the military. They return from America's wars of adventure and empire, often needing a lot of help. And they find that their government was perfectly willing to put them in harm's way on behalf of private profit and empire, but then they abandon them when they get home. So the denomination, the church people that I'm working with specifically are called the United Church of Christ. Then I chose them on purpose because they are a denomination that often goes first to jump in the pool, okay? All the way back to the 18th century. These are the first people that ordained African Americans to ministry in the mainline church and published their books. The first to ordain women in America to ministry. The first Christians that supported public radio and public education. Later they supported the Americans with Disabilities Act when the rest of the churches were opposed to it. And they were the first to ordain openly gay people to ministry and then support same-gender marriage. These are the people who always do stuff first, right? And then the rest of the Christians come along after about 20 years, 30 years, they come along. So these people in this denomination, the UCC, they've shown that they're opposed to the war on drugs and the militarization of the police. They support access to health care as a human right and public good, so I figure there's a shot that they might take a holy risk and be the first to support decriminalizing psychedelics. We can get to work saving lives. Right. People in this country are gasping for breath. They're gasping for breath. People are being crushed beneath the weight of despair. Now, I chose today's reading, this translation of the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, because it is like a plea to the numinous. It's crying out to something larger than ourselves. It's a collective spirit of life. This new gospel that Hicks has written, translated, created, titled simply Teacher's Teachings. It landed on my desk about a month ago, and it's beautiful because it strips away so much of these unnecessary translation errors and biases. Hicks has been fearless in this work. And most especially the way that the gospel is gendered into English in weird and unnecessary ways. It restores mystery to the text. And I've been reading it over and over again. It is complex and it is mystical. It doesn't try to make things easy, but in it is this plea from the voices of the teacher to something larger. Jesus is speaking to the source of being and trying to teach the disciples how to talk to the mystery. You are the clarity and the calm of the solitary. You see us as choosers, sees chosen, and you breathe into us the breath for which we gasp. I'm confident in these psychedelic medicines because I have gasped for breath. And I'm confident in the practices of people that are much more ancient and wise than we are. So I free range my chickens. It's the way they did it for hundreds of years. It turns out it's the best way to do it. Who'd have thought? And I put cedar chips in my linen closet because I read about that in a book from the 19th century, and it works. And I put white vinegar in my dishwasher. All right, this is folk wisdom, and it works and it heals people. And these medicines, these psychedelic compounds are very ancient things. They've been with us for a long time. It's counterintuitive, but it works. When humans are experiencing isolation and despair, access to safe psychedelic treatments under the care of somebody with training could give them relief and hope and healing. Now, I don't need to know the science behind all of this because I am not a scientist. I'm more of a technician. But I am a curious person. So I had an opportunity to speak with a scientist about this stuff and about these psychedelic medicines. And she was a brain doctor, and she told me not to say that. That's not accurate. She's a nuclear radiologist. Takes pictures of the brain, all right? And I asked her to explain this stuff to me as though I was a church pastor from West Michigan. And so you can imagine. And she told me this beautiful story that I'm going to tell to you. She said, imagine that the human brain is the source of a river, like a mountain, dotted with hundreds of springs and fountains and sources of water. And water from within the earth is bubbling up across the landscape. And over time, over the century, this water from within the earth is going to cut hundreds or even thousands of little streams and rivulets and creeks and brooks all along the side of the mountain. And all that water's flowing down into the river in the valley below. And these little creeks and streams, those are our thought patterns. It's the way that we think, the patterns, the way we look at the world. And it's the same with a mountainside. As time passes, the creeks and streams, they start to cut deeper and deeper into the rocks, so they become more permanent, more set in their ways, until you can draw a map of them or take a photograph with a photon scanner, right? So we can give them names to these creeks and brooks, and they're very stable. Our neural pathways are carved into our mind. Now, sometimes they're good things, right? I can play the violin with almost while I'm doing my shopping list in my head. I don't have to think about it. It's a little canyon. Playing the violin is cut so deep into my brain that I can do it in my sleep. Many of you work in the skilled trades, right? Your mind, your hands, your muscle memory can hang a sheet of drywall. Or wire up a junction box or program a computer without really having to think about it too hard. The water just flows, right? But some of these creeks are very bad for us. They're bad for us. Depression is a big one. It gets cut into that mountainside. My God, it is treacherous and deep. And the water comes up from the earth and plunges into that canyon from all directions. Our trauma, experiences from our lives that take hold of us at the strangest times. We're going through our daily activities, and our thoughts are bubbling up to the surface, and they plunge into this creek that was cut into the stones of our soul years ago, and we can't seem to get the water back on course where we want it. So this doctor said that it appears that these medicines, like psilocybin was the one we were talking about specifically, the active component in these mushrooms. It appears that they flood the brain with this chemical that's called serotonin, and it is as if all the fountains and springs and wells, they open up at full blast, and the water flows so powerfully, so prodigiously, that it floods the mountainside, and it overflows these old pathways, and the creeks and streams are completely washed out and flooded, and for just a moment, even the ego itself is overwhelmed, and we become like an ocean, an endless sea of thought and consciousness. And so they can overwhelm the pathways that are pulling us into the gravitational orbit of the thoughts that may be killing us. And for some people, in that moment, that simple moment is spent looking at the forest instead of the trees. This can be life-saving. The word that has come into currency over the last couple decades for these compounds, for these molecules because there's literally hundreds of them. The word is entheogens. Entheogen it's from the Greek. It means roughly to generate divinity within us, or to find the divine within, to find the inner holiness. It's bigger. It also refers to our practices: meditation, yoga, prayer disciplines, silence. Healing is not dependent on the compound. Okay. But why connect this to the church? Why? Why not just lobby the pharmaceutical companies? What's this got to do with the church? And what's this got to do with Jesus? I mean, this seems like pretty new agey stuff. Yeah? Why did you say, well, leave the Jesus people alone? They have enough on their plate to deal with. They got Christian nationalists and end-timers and capitalism. They do not need you bothering them about magic mushrooms. I can't. I can't. There's an intersection between the teachings and way of Jesus and the impact of this holy flood, these medicines. Now, first of all, religions have been incorporating entheogens into their practices since before we had language to describe it. Cannabis, marijuana, it shows up in the Old Testament, right? There's pretty serious evidence that Christians themselves employed this stuff in their mystical practices. But I think that Jesus was trying to unlock something in his disciples and the people he was teaching that is connected to these medicines. He's trying to help them know something that is larger than themselves, or perhaps remember something that they've forgotten. Every time they ask him about this, he redirects them toward empathy. Every time they ask him about what God is like, he takes and redirects them toward something larger than themselves. They ask him how to pray, and he teaches them that to pray, to forgive those who've harmed them. They ask him how to obey religious rules, and he tells them to help their neighbor. And then they ask him, what happens after you die? And he very carefully tells them that if they are seriously concerned about that, well, they need to focus on feeding the hungry, giving water to the thirsty, welcoming strangers, clothing the naked, caring for the sick, and visiting people in prison. Now, today, while they're alive. This is the work of empathy. And the barriers to this, the stumbling blocks, come from inside. They come from our own ego, they come from our past traumas, and they come from our depression and cynicism that have been cut into our minds like canyons. I can't ask a church to show radical hospitality to the stranger if the members of that church are barely keeping their heads above water. How can I love them? How can I love them into loving the unhoused or the poor and oppressed if they are unable to love each other or themselves? And how can I ask them to open their hearts to a flood of joy and grace and wonder that comes from beloved community if they are locked in a battle with an opponent that lives in their own mind? They're caught in a whirlwind of noise and anxiety from their own ego, a fear of scarcity, a fear of ridicule or humiliation or being cringe or whatever, fear of strangers, or fear of being loved. There was a great psychologist in the 20th century named Lawrence Kohlberg who wrote about our moral development, the stages of moral growth. This is what humans travel through as they begin to grow. And the first stage, the one that we start out with, the lowest level is he calls it pre-conventional morality. It's a fear of punishment and a desire for obedience. If the ref didn't see it, it wasn't a foul sort of stuff. If I want something, it's fine for me to have it as long as I can get it without being punished. We're supposed to grow out of that stuff around age 7 or 8. Some people never grow out of it. Some of them become president. We got to work on that, But the next phase is conventional morality. This is the middle, the concern for how others perceive us. I want to do the right thing so others perceive me to be a good person. And so I think there ought to be law and order. I think it's good to have rules. This is where 30 to 40% of us end up, conventional morality. It's what we expect from high school students. And then the third and final stage, the highest phase, he calls it post-conventional morality. It says that society has rights. And there are universal human rights. There's something larger than myself. And so I love humanity. And I'm filled with joy when I see humanity thriving and doing well. And I will personally sacrifice for the well-being of strangers. Not because I'm afraid of being punished, and not because I want to look good in front of people, but out of the deep joy that I get from the well-being of humankind. And they estimate that maybe 10 to 20% of us in America make it. 10 to 20% make it to that top level. That ain't going to cut it. Those are Those are rookie numbers. Pump those numbers up, folks. You got to get there. Spiritual practices that orient us toward empathy can lead us to the highest levels of moral development. Empathy is a doorway that we've got to walk through. And I think these psychedelic medicines can be one key that can maybe unlock that door. And is it better up there? Is it better to live up there? Believing in humanity for the sake of the beauty of humanity, to be subject to fear for the well-being of all life, given a perspective that is so great and wondrous that it sees all humans as inherently precious and holy. And I think that this place, this perspective is what Jesus of Nazareth is referring to as the kingdom of heaven. In Islam, it is known as Dar al-Salam. It is the house of peace. In Buddhism, it is the Shanti. And it is noble. In Judaism, the Shekinah. This is the place we can reach together. And we can only get there together. If you are gasping for breath, looking for something greater than yourself, empathy is a discipline of push and pull, of grasping and surrendering. And it is something that ego cannot give us. Reverend Fred Wooden said, grow your soul, right? Grow your soul. Grow your soul. Despite the very real pain that is boiling over in this country today, the very real fascism that is threatening the most vulnerable people, I still believe that we are on the cusp of something that is great and glorious. It is a shift in consciousness. The whole mass of humanity is grasping and reaching for something. It is a painful reach. It is just there. Beloved, you are mere steps from this summit. Light is about to spill over a horizon. So reach just a few more inches with me. Reach out and with your other hand, take hold of the hand of that miracle that is beside you, that person that is beside you, and we can take hold of this thing together. And then when you got it, you have to share it. You have to share it, because that's what gives light to the whole world. Amen. Amen. As I invite Robin Connell and the musicians to return here and share with us their gifts of song, I'm also going to invite the ushers to come forward to receive your gifts and offerings, your investments that you brought this day to make in this place, in Fountain Street Church, and in the work that we are doing together in this community. I invite the ushers to come forward, and thank you.
how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear. Was grace that my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. I noticed there's not another hymn today in the bulletin, but I would suggest, so for those of you who like to sing the first verse with me, let's do it. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, what saved a wretch like me. How precious did that grace appear. The blind, but now I see. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you so much. Friends, you have everything that you need. Go forth from this place seeking that light and seeking that holy water. It is flowing up inside each and every one of us. And when you find it, return here with it and share it. Go forth in peace to love and to serve. Amen.